Can we have AI help us write things? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about how we can use AI to help our everyday lives one small step at a time. Now, you probably know this. This is probably the first use case that people do when they get AI. Help me write something. Help me write an email. Help me draft something. And I have to tell you, I have a confession. I have written emails at 2 in the morning that I never sent, draft letters in my head during a drive, and sat down and couldn't get a single sentence right. I have put off writing for weeks because every time I try, it just came out wrong. Now, I'll tell you, I'm a talker. I am not much of a writer. And when I have things to write, I get really nervous about it. Mostly nervous that I'm not going to say the right thing or I'm not going to say it in the right way. And what if it came out wrong? What if it came out too angry? What if it came out too apologetic? Maybe it was just too much something or another. I'm not confident in my own writing. And that's what we're going to talk about these letters, how AI can become a writing partner to us that I never knew I needed. I didn't know that I would get this kind of help. And it really helped me in a way I didn't expect. So when I discovered that sometimes the best letters aren't the ones that sound like you, that's a part of my problem with writing, is every time I do something, I sound like me. If you're listening to this podcast, this is what me sounds like. I sound like this all the time. And when you're writing something, sometimes things cannot sound like you or should sound a little less like you. And sometimes the best letter is sounds like no one in particular. Calm, clear, professional. That's exactly what AI does naturally. I laughed about a situation where I had someone who was very sensitive, quick to anger and misread everything that you say. And I had to write an email to this person. And I thought, who's better to write this email than a robot? Something that could stay entirely neutral and professional. And it's what AI does naturally. So that's where I started getting into AI writing. I used to walk through, and I can walk you through 3 of these situations that I've used AI to write with where I was really struggling. And they're all different. And there's different stakes in place and different emotions and different reasons why I was stuck. But we'll go through the process of each of them. The key is don't ask AI to write a letter. Ask AI to write a specific letter with a specific situation. We talked about that before. You want to give AI always the context of what you're trying to write, the goal of what you're trying to write, and maybe any sort of landmines that are in there. The context you give to it, the better your output will be. Who you're writing to, what the relationship is, what happened, what you're trying to achieve, how you want to sound. All of that up front, you'll get the goals that you're trying to get. So let me give you the walkthrough. The first one was my resume. A couple of years ago, I applied for a new job. And this is the one that surprised me the most because it's a position I have not had to write a resume for 15 years. There were a lot of, roles I had in there. There were too many words, too many tasks. I've been in the working world for a long time in IT. I have a lot of experiences. Some things were even in the wrong order. And sometimes some of those items were 3 times longer than they needed to be. And because I was so nervous about my writing, I didn't know what to combine because my resume had crept up to about 3 pages. What I do over the times where I'm not looking for a job is anytime I'm given a new responsibility, I go back to my resume and I just write, not greatly, but I just write, got certified in blah, 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 did this particular task. And so that my resume is consistent. Primarily, I found out that when you decide to change jobs very quickly, whether it's your choice or somebody else's choice, it's a nerve-wracking time for you. And the most that you can have your resume together at any given moment, the less stressful it will be for you. So here was the thing I asked about AI. I didn't ask AI to rewrite my resume. I didn't want it to sound different than me entirely. I asked it initially to reorganize it. I have a resume. It's too long. It's not well organized. Here it is. And I pasted the whole thing in. I kept all the key experiences. I kept the whole 3 pages of it. I asked it to put related things together, cut redundant languages, put everything in the right order for someone who is applying for this kind of role. Don't invent anything, only use what I have given you. Don't blow it up, make it too flowery. But the most important thing was that last line, don't invent anything. AI, at times, it tries to be so helpful. Sometimes it can try to fill in the gaps. And you don't want it to do that when it's your resume. It's the last thing you want it to do. So it came back genuinely better. It was a page and a half long. Some of the accomplishments just got organized. Like someone who knew what they were doing had looked at it, and in a sense, they did. I did not find those ways of combining sentences together the way it did. It professionally tied groups of experiences together, cut down the amount of text I had in it, and that was just perfect. And it worked, by the way. But I really appreciated how something that was causing me to struggle, even though I had all the facts and I had all the details there, it did a great job of. Then it comes the story that when you have someone, maybe like a board member, and the robot is the right thing right now when you have a sensitive email that you have to write. So my second example is to a board member. And in this particular case, a robot attitude was the perfect attitude to have. And this was one of my favorite examples, not because it was a very important email. It wasn't. It was just a weekly kind of email that you might write at work. But it was to someone who is very, very sensitive, who can get upset very, very easily, who read things into very innocuous sentences that anyone else probably would have said, oh, that's fine. I don't think Jill meant that, or would have taken it the right way. But this taught me something about AI, and it changed how I used it. So like I said, writing an email to a fellow board member, someone who has strong reactions, constantly feels challenged, feels like they need to address every single thing you say in a confrontational way. And I needed to address something that was real. It had to be said. And I knew that if I came out in any way with any sort of heat, any sort of hint, it could make the situation far worse. So I gave AI the situation and I asked it to write a professional, neutral, measured email. And this is what it did. It was very robot-like. It was a little formal, but not too formal. It was a little not me. And it was exactly right, because this wasn't a letter, because this wasn't an email that needed my personality involved in it. It needed a little distance, and it needed the tone that doesn't give anyone anything that they could grab onto emotionally. AI doesn't get frustrated. It doesn't have a history with this person, and it lacks feelings. And that lack of feelings was the whole point of it. So I needed to write this email, like I said, to the board member about this situation that was bringing consternation to the group in general. But the relationship is professional. I don't know this person, but again, sensitive person becomes defensive easily. And so that I told AI to be neutral, calm, completely non-confrontational, and the goal is to address these issues without escalating anything. Please draft something measured and professional. The email worked. The situation got handled, and I started thinking about all the other times I had said something that had too much of me in it, maybe, and too much frustration, or too much history, or too much non-specific language where someone could grab onto it and become very emotionally upset about it. When this situation needed something calm, clear, professional, and direct to the point, and that's exactly what I got. Think about, too, the third letter is kind of more of a funny one, I guess, in a sense, it was a different angle entirely. So I was leaving a job that I genuinely loved. And the complicated part was that the person and my team that I cared about, my actual boss, wasn't the person I had to write the email to. This needed to be a formal letter to HR in a town I've never been in, to a person I've never met in my life. And the letter did not have to be heartfelt. It was just for the file. And I just felt very emotionally attached to this company and my boss. And the interesting thing is, I wanted to just be very clear about it. I would never send an AI generated letter to my boss or my friend or anything like that. That kind of relationship deserves actual words, actual gratitude. This letter needed to be something completely blank. It needed to be formal. It needed to cover what it had to cover, dates, when I was leaving, and, trying to end my career at this company on a professional but friendly way. I mean, that's what AI is really good at doing. So, because I was leaving this job for 15 years and writing a formal resignation letter to HR and not my direct manager, the tone should be professional, warm, formal, and I wanted to express genuine appreciation for the opportunities. I wanted to express how good my supervisor has been because I didn't want this to look poorly upon him. And this is my last date. Draft something dignified and clean. And what it came back was exactly that, a dignified, clean email, nothing to be embarrassed about, in my file. If I ended up going back to this company or just it ended my 15-year career at this company well. Took, probably, half a minute to write this. This would have taken me a long time to write it. And so here's the honest picture is that AI is excellent at emails. When you need to have a little bit of distance from your own emotion, where a professional relationship requires a certain tone that maybe you can't quite achieve. Maybe you're the person who is living through something and you're so wrapped up in it. It's excellent at organizing things that you've written that are too long, too scattered, in the wrong order. And it can be excellent too when you want to say something in a very formal language, like the HR letter. I tend to be someone who, like I said, very warm, very friendly. I can be a bit disorganized in my written thought. And this is what I used AI to repair about my own writing. When should you not use AI? When the relationship is personal and the person deserves an actual email in your own voice. When the letter needs your own specific tone to it. When it's a thank you note to someone you know very well, a message to when you have someone you love. They need to hear from you and not AI. Even when you coach AI to be a little bit more like you, there's a certain evenness in its writing that is not personal. It's not personal. It doesn't sound like you. And I'm hearing more and more as you see people talk about how they are getting personal emails or text messages that they know have been written by AI. And they're very upset about it. And I understand that completely. There's a place for AI to help you write something, and there's a place where someone really needs to hear from you. So the rule I've landed on is the more that the letter is about a relationship and the closer that person is to you, the more that email has to be from you. The more about the situation where it's distant, remote, professional, detached, the more AI can help you. But before we close, here's a prompt that I use when I'm just not sure at all whether AI draft is too formal, has lost some of my own voice. So here's what I go through whenever I'm having AI write something for me. I ask myself the question, does this sound like a real human wrote it, or does it sound more like AI? I can tell when I see I don't know, let's say certain podcasts or things that they are starting to use AI to write their podcasts, and I can tell by the words it uses, the structure of sentences it uses, that it's not them anymore, it's AI. So you wanna make sure that whenever you use AI to write something, it does have a real human feel to it. And then you ask yourself, what would make this feel more natural without losing a professional tone? Ask AI to critique its own output. Surprisingly, it's good at that. So oftentimes you can come back and say, the third paragraph's a little stiff. Here is, and you can even ask AI to critique its own output. Surprisingly, it's very good at that. It'll often come back and give you here's a new third paragraph. You're right, it was a little stiff. Here's a version that sounds more natural. The back and forth is when you get the best final drafts and when you'll actually get an email that is the most successful. Two things to take away from it is that AI is not just a writer. A lot of people use it for writing, but it's an organizer, a tone setter, something that puts a buffer between you and a situation that perhaps you need a little distance from. Not just filling out a blank page. Think of it as a tool of finding the right version of what needs to be said. Remember, context is everything. The more you tell AI who you're writing, what the relationship is about, what you're hoping to achieve, what kind of tone you want it to have, the better output you'll get. A vague prompt will get you a vague email. A very specific prompt will get you something that you may actually want to send. I hope that helps you when you're trying to write something. We're going to talk next week about another topic about when you're trying to write an email or address something that is more you talking to a vendor, a kind of correspondence that you feel like, not that you need a lawyer, but you need something very specifically sent, and it needs to have key details in it because you're fighting a billing error or an insurance dispute, something like that. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you being out there. Please let me know if there's a topic that you've been struggling with on AI. I would love to talk about it. You can leave a message right here in the chat channel, or you can just say hi. You can send an email to me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Thanks so much and have a great day.